Hello and welcome. My name is James Moffett, and I am coming to you live in Goose Creek, South Carolina. And I want to do a short instructional video to those of you that might want to be a guest on a podcast. I've been doing podcasting since May of 2023. One of them is ABC's of Parenting Adult Children, which is a support podcast for parents of children 18 to 30 years of age. And I also have another podcast called Liberty and Gun Rights for people that are patriots, support the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights, Second Amendment supporters, things like that. So I joined Podmatch Podcast Network in December of 2024. My experience and knowledge has grown exponentially because of my membership at the Podmatch Podcast Network. Alicia and Alex both created that network, and they provide a community of support for podcast hosts and guests alike. Probably one of the most important things that they do, besides encouraging people and giving them help, is they provide a community of podcast hosts and guests who support one another and talk about trends in podcasting. And Alex provides a lot of metrics, a lot of analysis and data with regards to the podcasting realm. I guess that's the best way to describe it, right? So anyway, I joined the Podmatch Podcast Network, and one of the things I had to do was to take a test. And this test identified the fact that I'm a storyteller. That's my method of podcasting, is I'm a storyteller. I like to tell stories. And that's not incorrect. I do like to tell stories. I like to tell stories about my childhood. I like to tell stories about my life. I'm a writer, podcaster, and photographer, and recently retired. I'm about 75% retired. I haven't retired 100% yet. I'm still working a part-time security job just to make ends meet. However, I love podcasting. And the purpose of this particular podcast episode is to talk to those of you that are thinking about or engaging in the activity of asking podcast hosts such as myself to be on our podcast. So I'm about 88 episodes in to ABC's of Parenting Adult Children. I've only released about 50 of those, and so I've got enough podcast episodes to release one episode every Friday at 8 a.m. until sometime in January. And it takes me about 3 hours to produce a podcast episode. That includes the researching the guest and listening to some of their podcast episodes that they've been on, reading their Podmatch profile, reading the questions, all of the above. And then after the 30, 45-minute or 60-minute interview that I do on Riverside, then there's about an hour and a half of podcast production. I produce a video podcast and an audio podcast. Video goes to my YouTube channel and to rumble.com. The other video podcast episodes are hosted on Captivate FM, and then I use an RSS feed to propagate that episode out to Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Public Radio. I already said iHeartRadio, didn't I? Yeah. And so there's like 5 different podcast hosting services like Spotify that are out there that my RSS feed sends all my podcast episodes from both podcasts out to these hosting providers, in which allows you, the listener who likes to listen to podcasts, provide you the ability to use your Apple, iPhone, iPad, MacBook, Windows, web browser, whatever. Whether you use a web browser to listen to the podcast episodes or whether you use a smart app like Apple Podcasts, this allows you to listen to a whole plethora of podcasts that are out there. And I don't know, somebody said there's like 3 million podcasts that are out there. They're not all live, not all of them are active. I think there's only 450 million active podcasts. And so apparently it's a thing, right? And I'm new to the game. There are people out there like Alex they've been doing it for a long time. He's been on 200 plus podcasts as a guest, and I think he's been at it for 11 years or longer. So I'm a newbie. I'm a baby podcaster right? So there is a learning curve. Anyway, the purpose of this podcast episode, and I'm trying to keep it brief. And I'm a storyteller, right? So you'll remember I said that. So I want to read some stuff to you. So you want to be you want to be a guest on my podcast. Now this is on my website. If you go to parentingadultchildren.org, you will see this blog post. It's entitled, "You Want to Be a Guest on My Podcast." Thank you for showing interest in my podcast and our listening audience. Here are some helpful tips that will help you decide if we are a realistic match. This is a parenting adult children podcast, which means my audience will be parents of adult children between the ages of 18 and 30 years of age. There are 30 plus topics that we speak about frequently. Please review the blog post that I wrote about those topics. If you read the blog post, there's a link that'll take you, if you click on blog post, it'll take you to that link. I spend a minimum of 3 hours per podcast episode between the actual interview, researching the guest, and post-production processes. That does not include the time spent to upload video clips to 5 different social media portals. I do not mind your pitching your services or products on my show, but I do want you to make an effort to connect with the listening audience and provide them with hope and resources to make their lives easier. In other words, this podcast is not here for me. It's not really here for you. Is for my listening audience who are parents of adult children between the ages of 18 and 30. And there's a whole list of complexities that goes along with just being a parent in general, right? Relationships are messy sometimes. Relationships are complicated. We have parents that are transitioning from one role to the next, from that of an authoritative figure in the life of a preteen or a teenager, and we are still teaching them life skills, to that of a mentor or a support person as our children transition into that of an adult, right, which is between 18 and 30. That's what this podcast is here for, is to support those parents, whether they be single parents, whether they be blended family parents, whether that be traditional male-female parents, however you want to slice or dice it. That's what we're here for. If you're serious about being a guest on my podcast or any other podcast, then you'll be serious about having the proper equipment for the interview. That means you'll need to be in a quiet place. You need to be in your own home office, or your living room, or your dining room, or your kitchen, or your mud room, or if you're in the South, or whatever room that you set aside for getting online and logging into a Zoom session or to a Riverside studio like I'm using now. But you need a quiet place, and you need a well-lit place. You need to have either a ring light. It's literally a ring that you can purchase from Amazon or any other place. You can go to Walmart and buy one, or Best Buy. Any of your electronic stores that sell podcasting equipment will have one, right? You'll need to have a quality microphone so the audio is good. 8.9% of podcasts are audio only, right? So as a podcast host, you'll see I'm using this microphone. It's a Fiducie FDUCE USB and XLR compatible microphone, and I like to have it about 6 inches away from my mouth so that it actually pulls in my audio into my computer or into Riverside Studio, and I'm able to edit it and make it sound even better on the back end, right? So you need a quality microphone. This is less than $100. It's like $68 in tax. I had my original microphone was a Yeti Nano Blue microphone that actually sat on my desk. And unfortunately, that microphone, while it did pick up audio, picked up noises and sounds from my environment all around me, right? It was picking up sounds from my laptop fans, my cooler pad fans, anything, my fan in the corner over here that's rotating, that's oscillating. And so after I joined the Podmatch podcast network, I learned that I needed a quality microphone. So you as a guest also need a quality microphone. All right. You will have a quality microphone so the audio is good. You will have a headphones or earbuds to reduce the chance of echo. Right. So I use these Bose Bluetooth ultra quiet noise canceling earbuds. I originally purchased them to listen to music on my iPhone or my iPad or my MacBook Air or whatever I was peering to. I like to listen to music, and so that's originally what I purchased them for. As I got more serious about my equipment on my podcast, I learned that I needed to have earbuds that were noise canceling so that when you're speaking on the studio as a guest, I'm hearing you through here and not through my speakers on my laptop. What happens is it creates echo, and it'll create echo for you too. If you have a laptop sitting in front of you and you're using the built-in speakers and microphone and the webcam on your laptop, what's going to happen is that you're when I'm speaking, it's going to come through the speakers on your laptop and it's going to feed into the microphone and it's going to cause echo, right? And it's the same thing for me as a host. I want what you're saying to come into my ears only into the Riverside studio, and I don't want it feeding through my microphone as well as my ears and causing an echo. I could talk more about that. This is outside the scope of this podcast episode. Again, I'm telling a story and I'm chasing rabbits. I need to stop it. All right. So you will have headphones or earbuds to reduce the chance of echo. You will have good lighting so we can see your face during the interview. I release both an audio only and video version of the episode. So if you're in a home office and you have plenty of lighting, maybe you don't need LED lighting. Maybe you will be very visible to your camera. I have a Logitech 4K camera I paid like $99 for 2 years ago. There are many 4K and 8K cameras that are available. You can, depending on your budget, you can get something that's economical, like this 4K Logitech camera, less than $100. This microphone is less than $100, and I have two LED lights that are on pedestals that stand up above my monitors, and they put light on my face. And I'm going to show you the difference. When I turn off these lights, you're going to see the shadow start creeping in. That's without my lights. Those are my studio. Here are my studio lights. So I'm going to turn them back on. You'll see how it drove the shadows away from my face, or at least I hope you did. All right. So you need to have good lighting. You need to have a good microphone, a good camera, and you need to be in a quiet place. All right. My wife and I love pets. However, having barking dogs or dogs jumping around in your lap or behind you during the interview is a bit distracting. So you want to have your pets in another room, out in the yard, in your living room. Close the door to the space that you're in if you can, and keep them from distracting us, the guest and the host, and the listening audience, right? Also, having people come in and out of your room while you're interviewing is also distracting. I had a guest that had a daughter that was home from college, and she was at her kitchen table, and the daughter came in and started rummaging around in the background, making herself a sandwich. Hey, that's fine. It's not that big a deal. It is distracting. We got a good laugh out of it. And I told the guest, that's fine. Yeah, it's no big deal. She made her sandwich and she left. She said hi on camera. We made it work, right? I'm real laid back. Life happens. And so what I'm talking to you about is an optimal environment for being a podcast guest, right? This is an optimal environment that we want to shoot for. And like I said, life happens. Sometimes we have to work out the kinks in the technology. All sorts of things can happen. It is helpful if you're able to test your internet connection, microphone, and audio settings before you connect to the Riverside studio. So I send out a reminder email about 3 to 4 hours before your session is to start, before you connect to my Riverside studio, so that you can make sure that your computer's up to date. Make sure your Windows operating system updates have been applied. Reboot firmware has been applied. Drivers have been applied. This is all standard operating procedure for you if you have a Windows computer. If you have a Macintosh or an Apple MacBook Pro or Air, it has the same capabilities going into system settings and running updates there as well. So you want to make sure all your hardware drivers, all your operating system updates have been applied, because I guarantee you, if you don't do that on a regular basis, it's going to cause a problem. And it's especially going to creep up and cause some issues with your equipment when we're trying to do a podcast episode. All right, so before the interview, I'll send out a reminder several hours in advance that will give you step-by-step instructions on how to have an optimal guest experience on my podcast. If you have any questions about your setup, please reach out to me so I can help. That's for ABCs of Parenting Adult Children. The email address is parentingadultchildren@proton.me. Parentingadultchildren@proton.me. Reach out to me via email. Say, hey, I'm having this problem. Can you help me with it? I'll even get you on a Riverside studio or Zoom session, and you can share your screen, and I can help you walk through these things. So anyway, that's a quick and dirty explanation of what a podcast host is looking for in a guest. You have a story to tell. That's why you're a podcast guest, right? You you have something you're passionate about. You're passionate about providing a optimal environment for children, adult children, so that they can become the best possible adult that they can possibly be, which is what their parents are their goal is for. That's what all of our goals are for, is to provide support for parents of adult children, right? And so if you're trying to become a guest on my podcast, I'm guessing that you have the same passion, the same drive, the same experience, the same expertise. You have a story to tell. So we're storytellers. And so I'm doing interviews of subject matter experts on parenting, and we're feeding back and forth off of one another. We're using our Podmatch profiles to ask key questions to get the information out that we can get out, right? So it can be a very dynamic and wonderful experience. If you've been a guest on my podcast, thank you so very much for being a part of this podcast journey. And to you as a potential guest, I want to say thank you for your consideration on being on my podcast. Look at my reviews. Go to Apple Podcasts. Look at my reviews. Look at my Podmatch host reviews. Go listen to some of my shows, some of our podcast episodes. There's 50 of them since May of 2023. You'll notice that the quality of my audio really sucked for the first, I don't know, 8 or 9, 10 episodes, and then hopefully it got a lot better, right? Which is the beauty of being on the Podmatch Podcast Network. Anyway, thank you for your consideration, and I look forward to speaking with you very, very soon. I hope this podcast episode has been helpful, right? And like I said, my email address is parentingadultchildren@proton.me. It's short for Proton Mail. Proton.me, just like it sounds. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.